Hello everyone, welcome to 10-Minute Physiology. In today's video, we're talking about the hypothalamic-pituitary-thyroid axis. So with that, let's give it a go. So what is the hypothalamic-pituitary-thyroid axis? Well, the hypothalamic-pituitary-thyroid axis is basically a big regulation cycle. And this regulation cycle begins with the hypothalamus. So the hypothalamus has many different regions in it, and the regions that we're looking at today are the arcuate nucleus and the median eminence. So the arcuate nucleus and the median eminence are going to be synthesizing a specific hormone called thyrotropin-releasing hormone, or TRH. So the hypothalamus releases TRH, and this TRH travels into the hypophyseal portal system, where it will interact with another region called the anterior pituitary gland. So how does TRH affect the anterior pituitary gland? Well, this right here is a zoomed in view of the anterior pituitary. And specifically what we're doing here is we're only looking at one cell in the anterior pituitary. So this particular cell is going to be called a thyrotroph. And the thyrotrophs in the anterior pituitary are going to be responsible for synthesizing and releasing another hormone called TSH, or thyroid stimulating hormone. So on this diagram here, we first see two fluid compartments. The first is the interstitial fluid, which is right here. And then behind the plasma membrane, we have the intracellular fluid, or cytosol. So we have the cytosol, the interstitial fluid, and the plasma membrane separating these two compartments. So how does TRH affect the thyrotroph? Well, when TRH enters into the interstitial fluid, TRH can interact with its receptor. And this receptor is the TRH receptor. So the TRH receptor is a G-coupled protein receptor, and the TRH receptor is going to be coupled to the GQ protein. So when TRH binds to the TRH receptor, it activates the GQ protein, and the GQ protein is going to activate phospholipase C. Phospholipase C catalyzes the conversion of PIP2 into diacylglycerol and IP3. IP3 enters into the cytosol, and it moves through the cytosol to the endoplasmic reticulum, which we see right here. So the endoplasmic reticulum has a receptor called the IP3 receptor. So IP3 binds to these receptors, which causes them to open, which allows calcium to flow from the inside of the endoplasmic reticulum into the cytosol. So the levels of calcium increase inside the cell. The increased calcium levels then stimulate the fusion of vesicles containing TSH, and when these vesicles fuse with the plasma membrane, TSH is released into the interstitial fluid, and then it moves into the blood vessels where it will go throughout the body. In addition, remember that phospholipase C converts PIP2 into IP3 and DAG. So in addition to IP3, phospholipase C also produces diacylglycerol. And remember that diacylglycerol will also activate protein kinase C. So in summary, TRH stimulates the thyrotroph cells to synthesize and release TSH. So if we come back here to our hypothalamic-pituitary axis, what we've drawn so far, we see that the hypothalamus releases TRH. TRH travels through the hypophyseal portal system, where it interacts with the anterior pituitary. The thyrotrophs of the anterior pituitary will be stimulated by TRH to produce and secrete TSH. So the anterior pituitary releases TSH in response to TRH. So the TSH is then going to interact with another specific region, and this region is the thyroid gland. So how does TSH affect the thyroid gland? So once again, we zoom in very close to the thyroid gland. And what we see here are a few things. So the first thing is the colloid. And remember that the colloid is the space inside a follicle. And these follicles are what make up the thyroid gland. The follicles, remember, are made up of an epithelial cell wall. And these epithelial cells are called follicular cells. And this big green rectangle is a follicular cell. And then outside the follicular cell, we have the interstitial fluid, which is bathing these cells. Remember that the membrane that faces the colloid is called the apical membrane, and the membrane that faces the interstitial fluid is the basolateral membrane. So how does TSH, or thyroid stimulating hormone, affect the follicular cells. Well, when TSH comes into the thyroid gland, TSH can bind to the TSH receptors, which are found on the basolateral membrane of the follicular cells. So these TSH receptors are coupled to GS proteins. So when TSH binds to the TSH receptor, this activates the GS protein. The GS protein will then activate adenylate cyclase. Adenylate cyclase catalyzes the conversion of ATP into cyclic AMP, and then cyclic AMP has a number of downstream effects. So the increase in cyclic AMP is going to basically affect the follicular cells, and it's going to increase the follicular cells' ability to synthesize and secrete thyroid hormone. So when we look at this in more detail, we see a lot of different results. So the first thing that TSH does is it increases the amount of iodide uptake. So if you saw my video on how thyroid hormone is synthesized, you may remember that on the basolateral membrane, we have the sodium iodide symporter. The sodium iodide symporter co-transported sodium and iodide into the cell, and it transported that iodide from the interstitial fluid into the cytosol. So TSH increases iodide uptake by activating that symporter. In addition, TSH also increases the iodination reactions in the colloid. Now, if you remember, inside the colloid we have thyroglobulin, which is a precursor protein. Thyroglobulin has tyrosine residues on them, and basically what happens is that in the colloid, these tyrosine residues can be iodinated. So TSH increases those iodination reactions. Also remember that in the colloid, the iodinated residues underwent a conjugation reaction, where two iodinated tyrosine residues basically are connected together, forming either T3 or T4. This process of conjugation is activated by TSH. In addition, TSH is also going to increase the amount of fluid phase endocytosis that takes place of iodinated thyroglobulin. The TSH will also increase the secretion of T3 and T4 by the follicular cells into the circulation. And then lastly, TSH also increases hyperplasia of the thyroid gland. So when we come back to our hypothalamic-pituitary axis, once again, we have the hypothalamus releasing TRH. TRH then stimulates the anterior pituitary to release TSH, and then TSH stimulates the thyroid gland to release thyroid hormone, which comes in two forms, T3 and T4. So the T3 and T4 is then going to exert negative feedback on different structures. So T3 and T4, first of all, exhibit negative feedback on the anterior pituitary. So the T4 that is released by the thyroid gland is going to be converted to T3 in the anterior pituitary. And this T3 that enters into the anterior pituitary, along with the T3 that was released by the thyroid gland, is going to inhibit the anterior pituitary from releasing TSH. So how does T3 do this? So T3 is going to work through two mechanisms on the anterior pituitary. The first is called the direct feedback pathway. And in this pathway, T3 directly inhibits the synthesis of TSH by the thyrotrophs. So in other words, the T3 will decrease the amount of TSH released by the anterior pituitary. The second pathway is called the indirect feedback pathway. And in this pathway, T3 decreases the number of TRH receptors on the thyrotroph. So by decreasing the number of TRH receptors on the thyrotroph, this means that the thyrotroph's sensitivity to TRH released by the hypothalamus is decreased. And if the sensitivity to TRH is decreased, this means that the thyrotroph will not be releasing as much TSH as it could have if it had more receptors. And this is because TRH stimulates the release of TSH. So if we decrease the number of receptors, we decrease the release of TSH by the thyrotroph. So these are two ways in which T3 decreases TSH release. So in addition, thyroid hormone is also going to have a negative feedback effect on the hypothalamus. So thyroid hormone inhibits the hypothalamus from releasing TRH. And if we decrease the release of TRH, we decrease the release of TSH, which decreases the release of thyroid hormone. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about is two more molecules, and these molecules are dopamine and somatostatin. So dopamine and somatostatin are both produced by hypothalamic neurons. So dopamine and somatostatin actually inhibit the anterior pituitary from releasing TSH. So this whole thing here is the hypothalamic-pituitary-thyroid axis. So that's it for this video. I hope this video helped you understand the hypothalamic-pituitary-thyroid axis, and I hope to see you in the next video. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you next time.